So, I've never done a message like this. It's going to be fun. A year ago, I met you all in the Blind Tiger in Ybor City. In the back room. Those of you who weren't there, it was a hot mess. It was an experience, and we definitely rose. And, you know, I can think back on the year and so many memories that we share, so many experiences that we've had together, both celebrations and memorials and all kinds of things that life happens in a year. And I thought it would be a wonderful idea to kind of pause and share some things, look back a little bit and share some things that I've learned about myself and about being a minister in the past year, but also give you all an opportunity to articulate some of the things and look back and what have you learned? What have you learned? And so hopefully you took the time to write some of that down on your blue piece of paper, and the basket's full, so this is going to be fun. So let me start with a few things that I've learned. And I went back through my journals, and I went back through the year in my mind, and 3 things just kind of stood out, and ministers like 3, like this, I said compartmentalized and whole. And so I'll share 3 things that I've learned, in no particular order, but the first thing I want to share that I've learned is that life happens. Lots of things happen, and there are challenges, and there are situations, and there are decisions to make, and my life is no different than your life, and I know that everything is bubbling up and happening for you just like it's happening for me. And the thing that I have learned in this year, more than any other year, and I've been in this spiritual philosophy for 17 years, but this past year has taught me more than any other year that spiritual practice makes a difference. Spiritual practice makes a difference. Anchoring yourself and really reminding yourself on a regular basis. If not daily, then how about twice daily? Reminding yourself that you are a God being, you are a spiritual force in your life, and that all the stuff that happens kind of gunks it up, and we forget. If we keep returning to prayer, we keep returning to meditation, affirmations, journaling, reading, all the things that keep us awake, life works better because we can hear that still small voice that's going on inside us. And what I've learned is that little still small voice is whispering, love, love, love. The answer to every question is love. The solution to every problem is love. And if we can get centered and know that, then our lives just work better. And that leads me to the second thing that I really learned this year, and that is that love is all there is. The only goal that I can have as a minister is for us to be loving, is for us to create a field of love. Because it is love that informs this whole community. If there are 2 of us here or there are 200 of us here, love is what we are coming to find. Love is what we're coming to share. And then if we get out of the way and all the other things, then we have love and we experience the love. And the third thing that I really want to share that I've learned this year is that the science of mind is my language. I have learned throughout this year that there are many ways in the world of expressing truth. Every major religion expresses universal truth in their own language. Ancient philosophers, they were all talking about the same thing using different words. They were all teaching truth. And science also shares truth in its own language. And what I love about the science of mind is it is big enough and broad enough and expansive enough to contain and to overlay any religious teaching. And that's so beautiful. and that this is the language that I speak, and this is how I talk about truth. And sometimes it's tempting to water it down or to change it just a little bit. But the truth is that this is the philosophy that changed my life and woke me up. This is the philosophy that inspired me enough to say, give up your career. You know, life's not all about money. Life's not all about what you can accomplish. Life's about how many lives you can touch. And so this is the philosophy that pulled me forth in that. And it is in this community that I've got to fully express that, and be that, and teach that. And this year of teaching has really anchored that in for me. That this is the philosophy that works for me. And I appreciate the fact that you brought me here. Wes was on the little committee that found me, and I don't even remember who all else was. I know Randy was. And
who was the chairman?
It was a bunch of you. You hired me to come be a Science of Mind minister. And I have anchored myself in that for this year. I appreciate that deeply. So those are the big three things that really kind of anchored in. And maybe we'll take this first Sunday in November every year and figure out what we've learned, right? Because if we're not learning and growing and evolving, then what are we doing, right? So I asked you to write on your blue pieces of paper, and Lori, if you could gather those up and pass them to me, that would be awesome. You can get them out of the basket, just put them in a stack for me, that'd be great. Oh, blue pieces of paper. I won't ask you to stand and ask your questions. We'll read those, and they can be like anonymous. You can talk to them. Oh no. But I asked you to write down what you learned to get it at the top of your mind. And I want to say most of the time for the questions, but maybe if you're burning to share what you've learned in the past year, you know, maybe we can hear from a few of you. Would anyone like to share what they've learned in this past year together? Vicki.
I learned that if I don't consciously practice the life that I want, use spiritual practice to create the life I want, that my unconscious creates my life.
Awesome. So I'm going to repeat that for the camera. What Vicki shared is that she's learned that if she doesn't consciously and purposefully create the life that she wants, then her unconscious self will create the life that she lives. And that's a big thing to learn, and that's a big thing that this philosophy teaches. Thank you. Thank you. Great. Who else has learned something this year? Wes, what did you learn this year?
I've learned that when you have faith in the universe of God, great things can happen. When we were looking at you for minister, you were our only choice at that point. And you ended up being the perfect choice. And just to know that when you're faced with one choice, it can be the perfect choice. I thought it was divinely inspired.
So I'll repeat that for the camera. What Wes was sharing is that when you have faith and when God is orchestrating and you surrender your life to God, and put some words in your mouth, that sometimes when you only have one choice, that choice is divinely inspired. That choice is divinely supplied. And I think sometimes we as human beings forget that. And we're thinking, oh, this is the only choice, and we've somehow lost, right?
Yes.
And that's not actually the truth. Yeah, I love that. Thank you, Wes. Can we get one more thing that somebody learned?
Okay. What I learned was that something that you were teaching, and you may need to change the words, but all experiences that you're having in your life are for your greater good. And that ranks right up there with all changes for the better. And it's something that I have struggled with. And I saw you, through your actions with your daughter, demonstrate this when you were here and she was in Seattle and she was rushed to the hospital after a medical test, and you sent out a text to the practitioners, please pray for Kelsey, blah, blah, blah. And I got just really anxious about this, thinking, oh, poor Laine, she's here in Florida and Kelsey's in Seattle, and I mentioned it to you, and she said, no, as soon as I sent out the prayer request, I felt this sense of peace. And I said, Kelsey must need this experience for some reason. And she released it. And I was in a struggle with my son and daughter in some choices they were making that I did not think were the right choice, but I was powerless. And I thought, oh, these are the experiences they need to have. And I just embraced the freedom of letting them have them. And it wasn't so much words, it was seeing it in action. And I knew that you were somebody who had really done your own work to get to this point. So I know I'm in the right place.
So what Susan said, to summarize for the video, is that I taught that we're on an evolutionary journey. We all are. Even my daughter far away in Seattle is on her own journey of learning and growing. And that we all have the experiences that we are supposed to be having to help us learn and help us grow. And that as a mom, or as a fellow human being, we can release another person's experience and surrender it and say, it must be for the good of the all and for the good of that person. And Susan was saying that watching me go through an experience with my daughter helped her understand that in a different way for her own children. So, thank you. So thank you. I know that I wouldn't be here if we weren't learning and growing together. So I'm glad that you can express, and I look forward to reading all the things that you've learned. But what I want to do is try to get to your questions. I'm going to shuffle them. And I reserve the right to not answer a question. I also reserve the right to say I have no idea. But maybe it will give me an opportunity to know something else that I might want to teach. So I'm not cheating, there is no question on that one. The question is, what was the most challenging principle for you to understand? The most challenging principle for me to understand was the one that Susan just pointed out. That everything that is happening is for my betterment. That my spirit calls forth and brings towards me and magnetizes towards me every experience that I need. Even that experience. Oh, and that one too, and that hard one as well, and that one that just takes me to my knees. Yeah, that one too. And I struggled with that, having a special needs child. Like, how could this be for her? How could this be for me? And many practitioner sessions later and prayers later, it finally dawned on me that a soul could, in fact, desire an experience in a less than perfect body to learn many, many, many things. And so that was one that was really hard for me to understand. I love the ones with no questions. It says, I am satisfied with the religious practices of Suncoast Center for Spiritual Living. So my question is not religious in nature. How do we attract more people to Suncoast? How do we attract more men and more minorities? Great question. Great question. Remember what I said I learned? One of the things that I learned is that the only goal that we can have is to be loved. And I said like maybe my first Sunday here, that whether there were 500, we would do the same service. We would do the very same thing that we do whatever we have planned. That it doesn't matter to spirit how many bodies are in the chairs. It matters to us as human beings, and we want we want to use different measuring sticks of success as a center. And what I know is that as we must grow deeper before we can grow wider, right? And so I know that as we continue to practice and we continue to show up every Sunday, the right and perfect number will show up every time. I think one of the barriers to our growing may be the size of the room. We fill this room beautifully. We know that we can bake a bigger cake when we have a bigger pan, right? And so we kind of need a bigger pan. And we're working on that. We have a building committee meeting in a few weeks, the 14th, I believe it is. I'll announce that later in the announcements. And we're going to be talking seriously about growing and getting a bigger pan to make a bigger cake. And as far as attracting men and minorities, we are our best advertisers. Most of you came here because someone invited you here personally. Some people will find us on the internet. Some people will find us through a meetup or whatever we're doing on social media. But most people come to spiritual communities because they are invited. So when you meet someone in a minority group that you are attracted to them, meaning their soul calls out to you, invite them. Talk about Suncoast. When you find a man out there in the world that is spiritual in nature, invite them to come. We really, I mean it when I say that I welcome all people and love all people. And that consciousness will attract what it is that we're wanting to have. So hopefully that answered your question. Why did you become a minister? I kind of answered that a little bit a minute ago, in that this philosophy absolutely changed my life. There's some people in the room who've known me since before I knew spirituality and can testify that I have in the past 17 years. And I became a minister because I have a background in counseling, I have a background in leadership and in training and things like that. And so my skill set really came together perfectly for a minister. And if I took an aptitude test, it would come out to be like a social worker, a hospital administrator, a minister. It would be on the list. And so when I realized that I was going to dedicate my thinking time to this philosophy, I was very early on encouraged to explain the philosophy to other people, because the way that I could see it was very simple and I could explain it. And so my practitioner teacher at the time, Eric Odell, love you, bless you, Eric, encouraged me. He's like, you should teach this. You should help other people understand this philosophy. So I said, okay, all right, why not? No. So that's why I became a minister. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Where do you see Suncoast in 5 years? What can I do as a member to assist in moving Suncoast forward towards this vision? Good question. I like that question. I like that question too. Let's see, everybody asked that question. I think, Jonathan, you said something like, what can you do? I see myself in 5 years more deeply me. Where do I see myself? I surrender. I absolutely have learned to never say never, to never firmly set a place or a thing as a goal, but instead, what do I want to experience? What do I want to feel? And so in 5 years, hopefully I'm feeling more of what I feel right now, which is the love of a community, And I have no intention of leaving Suncoast. This is my home. Becky will kill me if I decide we want to live. By the way, Becky's flying home this afternoon. She said it's not that she didn't need to be here this morning. But at any rate, and so where do I see Suncoast in 5 years? I do see us growing. I see us in hopefully a more permanent location in a bigger cake pan in 5 years. And I have vision of a music director, a spiritual experience that is absolutely supported by the music. I see a variety of speakers coming through. I see more interfaith stuff. I want to connect more in the Tampa Bay interfaith community and bring a lot of those voices into our midst as well. For as we understand and love others, we will attract and be able to support others. So I see lots of things. And what can you do as a member? What you can do as a member is give. What you love, you give to naturally. When you love a child, you give to that child. When you love a pet, you give to that pet. You will buy the most expensive, craziest toys, and you just give because you love. And so my hope is that as a member of this community, that you love this community, that you love this minister, that you love this practitioner team and the prayer support you get, and that you appreciate it and you give. Because it is through it. Remember I talked a few weeks ago about money is energy. So money is a symbol of your appreciation. It's a symbol of your energy that you are flowing into this community. So giving is the best thing that you can do. Not only of your money, but especially of your money, but not only your money, but your presence. Be here. Be here. Your soul is needed here in order to create the best Suncoast experience we can have. You were called to this community. Honor that call. Be with us. Be here and love the people that show up. That's another thing that you can do, is be the love in the room. Greet the visitor that comes in. Let them know they're welcome. I hope that when you were the first-time visitor, that we were welcoming and generously supportive of you as you walked in the door, letting you know where that one bathroom is and where the coffee is and all of that good stuff.
Sometimes only one choice is the best choice.
And participate in the activities that we provide. I'm using this little line, we like to be spiritually social and we like to be socially spiritual. And so when we provide opportunities for you to come together, try to support what we've got going on, because again, it might not be for you, it may be for someone else that interacting with the community for the first time. Okay, I'll keep going. I've kind of already answered what is the vision for Suncoast. Are you happy in this community? Are you kidding me? And are you hoping to stay indefinitely if you are? My heart is here. I have no intention of leaving. I mean, my best friends moved here from Atlanta. I mean, what are we going to do? What is a practical technique you use when you feel like you're in limbo to center back to present moment consciousness? A very, very simple one is I remind myself right here, right now. Right here, right now. Right here, right now. Bring your consciousness in and down. Bring your attention, your focus. That's what I mean by consciousness. Bring it in and down. Because right here in your center is where you are connected with the all. You know where that is in your body. Everybody has their own place where they feel the divine. They feel spirit. They feel the origin of the breath. And it is in that place that you can draw your attention in and remind yourself. This breath I just took is the breath of the divine. Right? Right here, right now. I actually sing a lot. The song she just sang, It Is Well With My Soul, I literally drive around in my car singing that. The other one I sing a lot is I Surrender All. it's old hymns, but they come from my childhood, I suppose, but they anchor me in knowing that I am a part of something bigger than myself. I sing Karen Drucker's I Am So Blessed a lot. I sing the Buddhist meditation, May You Be Filled with Loving Kindness, which I've sung in class before, but I'm not singing here. My question revolves around Holmes's views of the paranormal and mysticism. What does he convey on these topics? Holmes did not, in the reading that I've done, he did not address these things too much. However, I did take a class in ministerial school about New Thought and the paranormal. There's another word for it, it's just escaping me right this
Occult.
minute. Say it again?
The occult.
The occult, that wasn't the word, but that's another word. What he had to say is that all is divine. All are ideas in the mind of God. And all of these techniques or whatever are ways that some people use to interact with the mystery of life, the supernatural, if you will. I wouldn't necessarily use that word, but it's a common word that you understand what we're talking about. I can't speak to Holmes's viewpoint, but I can speak to my own, which I don't know if that's helpful. But what I believe is that I don't pretend to know what I don't know. And one of the things that we will never know on this human plane is what happens after we die. That's the mystery. That's the mystery of life that we'll never have the answer to. And we live in relationship with that mystery our whole lives. And that what I say is that anything that helps you relate to that mystery and it uplifts you in any way, I have no judgment of that. I think we all are on a path of understanding and figuring life out, and if any of these things help you in some way, I don't believe, and I know that Holmes taught that we don't need an intermediary, that we have a direct connection to the divine. I'm actually going to be teaching a class on mysticism, since you threw that word in here, starting hopefully in January. I haven't reviewed that with the board, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to start it in January. Yeah, because I'm actually taking.
So how do you define mysticism?
Mysticism is your direct connection, your individual connection with God, and leaning into that. And every religious teaching has a mystical path, like Kabbalah for Judaism, and then we'll get into that in class. These no questions on those. What is the main difference between the last community that you served and this community? And in parentheses it says besides size. Size does not matter.
To something.
It's really interesting to get this question today because I was just in SLCA in the center in Atlanta last Sunday, so I really can tell you the difference. And the main difference is that there are, when you have a larger center, you have more resources of every kind to work with. There are more musicians, there are more dollars, there are more people, there are more resources with which to create. Other than that, there really is no difference. It's the same teaching. It's the same feeling when I walk in the door. I feel like kind of blanketed with love and acceptance and gratitude and all of that. It's the same feeling in both of the communities. That center has been around, I think they're celebrating 39 years in Atlanta. Next Sunday, I think, is their anniversary Sunday. 39 years. So let's meet back here, and we're on going on year 8. So let's meet back in 31 years, and let's see where Suncoast is in 31 years. I would imagine we will feel a lot like SLCA. And Atlanta started in a bar. It's so funny. When I went, and I would tell this little story, I've got a few minutes. When I found out that we were going to be meeting in the Blind Tiger in the back of a cafe, I called Wayne Gibson, who was Kennedy Schultz, who was the founder of the Atlanta Center. He was his partner at the time, and I called Wayne up, and I was like, Wayne, I got this new gig. I'm gonna be this minister in a community, we're gonna be meeting in a coffee shop. What advice do you have, as you met in the bar, 39 years ago in Atlanta, how did that work? And the bar was called the Admiral Bimbo, that was funny too. Anyway. We were blind tiger, whatever. Okay, so, and Wayne's advice to me was this: focus on the message. It doesn't matter what building you're in, what environment you're in, the message is all that matters. Everything that frames the message will come in time. Then focus on the message, Laine. You know how to teach this philosophy. You just focus on what you can focus on. Keep the main thing, and the main thing is the message. So, there, I said that, and I think I answered the question. How tall are you? I went to the doctor on Friday, and I'm 5'11" on the dot. Thank you for not asking how much I weigh. Is there a specific spiritual principle that you have applied in your life that changed everything? Yes, forgiveness and gratitude. Wait, you said one. I'll say forgiveness. Forgiveness is the most important principle that changed my life. And if you've been around, you've heard that I found this philosophy right after a major divorce, right after a major breakdown of the structures in my life. And I felt at that time that all of that was happening to me, that I was the victim of this breakup and this, oh my gosh, it was a mess. And I was so angry at so many things. And when I found spirituality, and it just turned that on its head, and that whole thing of you have the experiences you're supposed to have, helped me realize that instead of giving my ex hell, that I should actually give her an Oscar, because she played her role in that whole situation scenario to a T. She played her role perfectly for me to learn the things that I needed to learn. And so I forgave, I had to forgive. And so I forgave, and I forgave, and I forgave, and when you get done forgiving and you're just worn out from forgiving, you realize there really was nothing really to forgive anyway. It was all just the way it was supposed to be. And so that my definition of forgiveness is giving up the idea that the past could have or should have been different. The past could not have been different. It should not have been different. It was exactly the way it was supposed to be. And that, my dear, will change your life, whoever asked that. What goes through your mind and heart before you engage in a difficult conversation? If I know I've got to have a difficult conversation, or one of those conversations that's going to challenge me, what I really try to do is suspend my ego. Okay, so my ego wants to be right, and my ego wants to be heard and understood, and my ego wants to protect myself, right? But if I'm going to be having a difficult conversation, if I can let that go and I can instead seek to understand, then that will help me have that difficult conversation or hold space for something that's going to be challenging. And I try to also practice the idea that it's not about me, that my role in that conversation is for the other person, that I'm creating a sacred container for that person to express what it is that they need to express. So I don't know if that helped, but that's my answer. Only two more. We're going to get them all done. I'm so happy. What led you to Ernest Holmes' teaching as opposed to other options available? What led me to his teachings, actually my first spirituality book was Return to Love by Marianne Williamson. And when I read her book, I was also reading an author that's made his transition, Leo Buscaglia. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. I read his books and Marianne Williamson's books. And then I started reading Wayne Dyer and Deepak Chopra and, lots of spiritual teachings. Oprah was my first window into spirituality, and that's how I found Marianne's book. She was featured on Oprah back in the late 90s, and that's where I found it. And when I was reading all that, I had no idea that there was a place to go on a Sunday morning and hear these kinds of things. I had no idea. And so when I got to Seattle and I was, talking at my job and other places and saying things that I had read in these different books, 3 different people said to me at different times along the way, have you ever been to the Spiritual Living Center? I'm like, no. The first time I was like, no, with an attitude. The second time I was like, no, I haven't. And the third time I'm like, where is this place? So the Spirit was kind of tapping. I really do believe I was drawn to it, and these people crossed my path to get me there. And when I walked in, and I will say, if I had walked into a Unity church first, I might be Unity. I don't know, but I walked into the Center for Spiritual Living. That's where I walked in and found the flags of every major church hanging from the ceiling. And I had grown up in this is the only path and everybody else is going to hell kind of church. And so for me to see everything accepted and open, that was what led me to keep coming back and staying. And the music kept me there as well. And I will say, to correct myself, after I went to the Center for Spiritual Living, when I moved to Dallas, at that time there was not a good Center for Spiritual Living, so I went to Unity. And then when I moved to Atlanta, the first place I landed was Unity. So I could have chosen Unity. What made me choose Unity as to become a minister and to further my education in, what made me choose Science of Mind was the mental challenge of it, the intellectual juiciness of the Science of Mind. Made me pick that over Unity, to be honest. Okay, last one. How does Science of Mind explain how consciousness works? Oh, please. When bad things happen to them. Okay. Okay, so what in an infant, is that what it is? I don't want to put anybody on the spot to help them me with their writing, but something like how consciousness works in an infant when bad things happen to them, etc. So let's just, I'll take the general question as, how does Science of Mind deal with when bad things happen? It kind of goes back to Susan's, what she learned, is that we're all having the experiences that we're having. There's a difference between what happens to us and the story we tell ourselves about what happens to us. That we give meaning to our experiences. We decide whether something that has happened in our lives is bad or good, or something hurts or doesn't hurt. And I know that's the truth because the same thing can happen to 10 people and they will all have a different experience of it. For example, let's just say, well, most things that are difficult involve death, okay? Most things that you're gonna say are really, really bad involve death. And the Science of Mind helped me, gives you the opportunity to release the attachment that death is bad. Death is just as an important life experience as birth, as high school graduation, as your first kiss, as all these things that happen to us as human beings. The experience of death is just as valuable to the soul. And how you die is neutral. We as human beings say, this is the way you could die, and the only way you really can die, actually my mother would say she wants to freeze to death because she's going to be warm, very, very warm, and then she, okay. She's told me that her whole life, I want to freeze to death. You know what, I wouldn't be surprised. But at any rate, how we die is neutral. We as human beings label this one good, this one bad, this one good, this one bad. And so when you allow life to unfold and understand its perfection, and that our souls are not attached to a certain way of, I'll do a sermon on this, I'll do a message one Sunday about this, because it's bigger than I can explain today. But when you allow your soul to experience anything life throws at it, if you will, and surrender it to the divine, and partner with the divine in creating your response to it, then life works better. Life works better. We're more at peace. We have more empathy. We have more release and love, and less resistance to what life is showing you. Hopefully that answered that challenging question. I look forward to reading what you learned. I look forward to reading your comments that you put at the bottom. If you did get a chance to fill this out and give it to me, I will leave these up here and you can leave them on the podium after the service. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for a year of learning, and may we have many, many more.